was able to put on tefillin. Today he put on tefillin. And it came in such a way that the social worker heard about an event that took place for volunteers and social workers, and something that I didn't even think would have any influence was something very internal in the hospital. But she heard through a friend, who heard through a friend, said, you know what, I'll call the rabbi, maybe you'll be able to do something. So what I have to say, the other one with the staff in the emergency room also was from simple, small, simple acts that took place dafka in the year of Hakel. And it's beautiful to see that everything was, gathering together in the hospital, the gathering towards a Jewish identity and towards the Hakel. But it was from each and every level of the staff, the team in the hospital, that brought to that. So a few days ago, I spoke to a friend of mine, Rabbi Paris, and I told him, look, I see that since the year of Hakel, right after Tishrei, I see that there's a great siyata d'shmaya. Everything that I'm trying to do that has to do with gathering people for a Jewish cause. And we mentioned it. Now in Hanukkah, we had an event. We were thinking about an X amount of people, also staff, and we had more than double, and we had to expand the tables and expand the tables and expand the tables to an extent that, it was hard. And what they spoke about is only, we spoke about Hakel, but what they themselves, the feedback that I got from them during the event and after, it was so beautiful and so special just to be like this together. Just to be like this, all of us together. And I think those were the three small points, actually to one point of the Hakel, the special siyata d'shmaya that one can get, and a glance of it in the hospital. So l'chaim, I'm sitting here, there's no l'chaim, they're sitting there with all the drinks. Now I know why I didn't want you to go there. Okay, now I realize. We'll see you in the hospital.
Recording in progress.
Chaim. Talking about Hakel, so a lot of times there's a little bit of a challenge when you're speaking to people like in Burlington, that to try to explain these things that the Rebbe wanted so much, to bring it down that the simple people should be able to understand. So it was Yom Kippur by Kol Nidre, when, like in a lot of Chabad houses, that's when you have your biggest crowd. And for whatever reason, maybe even in this year, we had a tent. I hope we passed those situations. And it was a huge crowd. As you know, Vermont is a very, very liberal state. And as of today, you still have quite a lot of people that are with masks and things like this. So I brought out a very interesting point, the idea of Hakel. That Hakel is the medicine, is the cure for what we went through during COVID. What happened during COVID? I don't know what happened here in Montreal. It's not what I'm talking about in Burlington and Vermont. Many people, unfortunately, became very, very selfish. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know why? Because basically you're home. Many people, you stay by yourself, and you're afraid to be in contact with other people because Chas v'shalom, maybe you're going to contact someone. Oh, yeah, yeah. So people learned until today. It's very hard. Calling people, come to shul. They got used to. People got used to. They don't only think what's necessary. But I told everyone, and I know it was well received, that Hakel is the cure for what happened during COVID. Hakel is when we come out, when we all come together. Maybe with social distance, I don't know, but it says Imdim, Mishtachavim, and there was Levachim, so who knows? But I looked on the crowd and I almost hit them. I said, the idea that if you're by yourself and you don't think about other people, that's such a terrible idea. And in a way, this idea of Hakel, besides the point that this is what the Rebbe wanted from us. You know, the religious Zionists also tried to imitate the idea of Hakel, but just on Sukkot. The Rebbe's thing was, it's a Shnas Hakel. The whole year is Hakel. And that by itself is something unbelievable. So whatever you do, whatever you find yourself, if you're any gathering, it is Hakel. So just 2 weeks ago, as I was going up on the lift to light first night candle by the UVM green, and it was unbelievable. Hundreds of people came. It became an established thing in Burlington. Early years in the 80s in Burlington was Pashat HaMilchama. We were taken to court. The ACLU, if anyone knows a little bit, were taken to court because we had our Menorah City Hall Park. We won in the local courts. We lost in the appeals court. The Supreme Court didn't want to listen to it. The decision in Pittsburgh is the menorah is only allowed if there's other symbols. If there's a Katzmach tree, but a menorah on its own, you cannot do that. And the city hall, they got together and they made sure there won't be any other symbols. Finish. They made sure there shouldn't be any other symbols. I remember Beshaite, this is in the early 86, above 85, I think December 85. But Rabbi Krinsky that called me, he says that in the car when he was taking the Rebbe to the oil, the Rebbe asked him, "Was tut sich mit der Menorah in Vermont?" You can see how those headlines in the New York Times in that time about the menorah. So as I'm going up on the lift and I'm looking on the crowd, it hit me and I said to myself, I'm looking on this whole crowd, so I'm going to talk to them how you have to be proud as a Jew, but then Hakel. And just like this, I told everyone, we find ourselves in the year of Hakel, and explained to them how by the end of every 7 years, during temple time, there was a review on the whole Torah, and how important that is, and that's, in a way, what we all doing being here. And had so many people come over to me when I came down and says, we never heard of that. Where is that? Where did you take this from? It's an amazing thing. And then later on in the middle of the week, we had a lighting in Montpelier, the capital in Vermont, with the governor. And this is, by the way, very interesting. We asked the governor to come. So the governor, we didn't even know. The governor tells us, do you know one of the Supreme Court justices in Vermont, that's from the justices in Vermont, is Jewish. I'm going to invite him to come. And that's what happened. He was there and they all spoke and again brought out this point. I want to connect all these things with another because it brings out a very interesting point. When we moved to Vermont, the Seder was early on, when the Shluchim left, when the Rebbe sent Shluchim, that in the beginning, the Merkez, Rabbi Chalako, they would give support for 1 year, 2 years, and then you're on your own. Then you have to start raising money. In the end of Tafshin Mem Gimel, I remember we're in the Kollel, and Rabbi Moshe Topolsky Shlema came in, and he said to all of us, who is interested in going on their own? And he explained, that doesn't mean working for somebody, that means you're going on your own. And then he added on that things have changed. It's not anymore that you're going to get supported. You're going to have to figure out your own way of being supported. I remember that things have changed, but then not too many hands were raised in Kailo Tafshin and Gimel. Well, anyways, this is what happened. So, after got the answer of the Rebbe, that's by itself very interesting. Writing to the Rebbe, Kifi Hatzas Hamalach. And this reminds me something very interesting. There were three people, three shulchin, not yet, but to be. And as far as we know where we're going. Rabbi knew was going to Atlanta, Yossi knew. Moshe Wilhelm, that later became a Mechutim, was going to Portland, Oregon, and I was going to Burlington, Vermont. That's how we were told that before we have to go and sit down with Rabbi Chalikov. We go in, we sit down with Rabbi Chalikov, he turns to us, he says, number one, you have to know that you should be ready to go wherever we sent you. I remember we were looking at each other, has things changed? Are we going? Not that I knew a difference, but at that time I had no idea what Vermont is, and that it's one of the 50 states. But I remember they looking at me, looking at them, is things going to change over here? But he says, Ich darf Herr Funaich, I have to hear that you're ready to go wherever we sent you. So of course, we said wherever he sent us. Towards the end of a long conversation, he gave us a whole long speech. He turns and says, and now Rabbi Kotlarski is going to tell you where you're going. It's a little bit of relief. But anyways, we wrote in, that's how we wrote it in that it was Hatz. So Samalach, and I have to tell you, I had different offers before. It's interesting, and on all these things, whatever was Belgium, Panama, whatever other things that came up, the Rebbe said no to everything. Here the Rebbe said yes. But one thing was clear, when it comes to the financial, you're on your own. Finish. So here we are, we arrived in Shvat, and just if you think a little bit about shlichus and going out on shlichus, and the people, when I tell people in Vermont, they can't even believe that, we moved to Burlington a week after Yud Shvat. The day we arrived in Burlington, I don't think these temperatures exist so much nowadays, but it was 20 below zero when we arrived. But after 1 month, you can't, when you meet people, hello, can you give me a donation? Can't do that. You have to get to know the people. So here it is. Baruch Hashem was a very successful Purim. We had an unbelievable Purim party in our house. The president, the vice president, the treasurer of the conservative temple, they all showed up. And then the conservative rabbi comes in because I gave him Shachmanis. He came back and he was completely shocked to see the stop people all sitting by a Purim party at Chabad that we just came. But here it came closer to Pesach and the situation financially doesn't look good. We went to New York for Pesach. right after Pesach, I wrote in to the Rebbe. I wrote in that the matzav hakalkali is not great. I'm asking from the Rebbe what exactly we should do. Every day I would go into Maskiras and they would say there's no answer. No answer. I called my father and I told him, before he even had a chance to explain, he yelled, he started to scream out. He said, Shem Sechlish, you are writing to the Rebbe that you don't know what to do? You got a shlichus, you got a shlichus, you're out of your mind. How do you write such a thing to the Rebbe? Okay. Decided, with the help of my shver, we got a little bit of support, and to be very correct, going then back, got a loan for $1,000, and I wrote in to the Rebbe, Baruch Hashem, we secured a loan, and we are going back. In an hour, there was an answer from the Rebbe. Kain Yevaser Toiv Kol Hayomim. For a whole month, no answers. I said to the Rebbe, I'm going back. Kain Yevaser Toiv Kol Hayomim. So l'chaim, l'chaim. Just a few interesting points about Heitevis. Way before, there's an interesting sikha of the Rebbe